3, 2, 1.
All right, welcome back to Show Me Trucks. In this video, I finished up some odds and ends on the 36 GMC back here. Get ready to drive this bad boy. So let me show you a couple of the last minute projects that I've been working on. I came out and started up the engine just to get the day started. I knew I needed to put training fluid in so that obviously training can start working. And I had a really nice oil leak right here. I also had some backfiring, which was super exciting. It was running for a minute and then it started popping a bunch. And so I was like kind of stressing because it sounded pretty rough. And then I knew that I needed to change these spark plugs out because whenever I put all the seals in, I didn't know how long it was going to be before I ran it. So I kind of had some oil on the cylinder wall, so I knew all that was going to work its way onto the spark plugs. So that's what it did. The spark plugs are over here. They look disgusting. You know, they're pretty black. Of course that won't focus, but they're pretty crusty spark plugs, and they're old anyway. I was going to run it because I knew that's what was going to happen. So I put new spark plugs in, fixed that. I had a little bit of a fuel leak on one of my fittings back here, so I just tightened that up. That fixed that. So nothing too serious. She's back to running fine. Hopefully no more issues. I was a little afraid the catch can was filling up, and maybe it wasn't letting the PCV system release pressure, and that's what was blowing out my gasket, but that doesn't seem to be what it was. All those lines were dry, so yay. But now I need to bleed the brakes so I can actually drive this thing around. And to do that, I need to pull all these wheels off. I'm gonna pull these off because I don't want the fluid to run all over the inside of the rims and melt the paint off. Well, just trying to knock out some odds and ends while I bleed the brakes. So I got the headlight out, so I hadn't messed with these yet because I was actually kind of dreading it. But I was happy because I didn't want to have to break this bolt loose. So these are simpler than I thought. I thought it was going to be like a little socket with a bulb in there and then a glass lens. But actually, this is set up. And it looks like my 67 lights look like the same ones, semi. I mean, they're 12 volt, obviously, instead of the 6 volt. And they have little nubs on the outside compared to these. Hopefully the outside rim sits in this little casing the right way. Because, man, I would love to not buy anything and just throw those in. I did have this screw in there that holds the bottom of the case. Broke that off. That was fun. Still working on it. You can see it broken off in there. And then there's actually that top one is a ground screw, and it broke off also. So what I'm going to do is I'll just drill that out, and I'll run a ground wire all the way in so I can actually get a good ground somewhere down here, I think where my horn grounds. I kind of wish that was just one big hole so I could just run grommet, but I might have to open those up a little bit just so I can find a grommet that fits. But this is a little tricky to get out, so I'm going to have to tinker with this a little bit more because I still want, obviously, to retain that hole. I might have to open that up bigger is probably going to be the issue, but I still want to get that out without damaging this up too much. And I like how these have like a bunch of venting in the bottom. I know you can't really see that, but there's a bunch of venting there. There's another hole down in there. So I'm sure these kind of get wet in there a lot. This little tab is interesting. So it just kind of holds that carriage bolt down in there. So if I did want to take that off and remove it, I could throw a new bolt on, which I do not. I do not want to adjust this at all. I'm just going to leave it. And then this little angled piece is threaded, and that's what your bolt goes in. You kind of had to have a long bolt because of the way the lens is, but nothing too crazy in here. So I'll run little grommets in there, and this is all riveted on the outside of the case, but I just want to make sure and push that down. That way my wires don't run across that. Pretty simple. And then up here, as you can see, there's little retainers, so you kind of have to get the top in and then pivot it down to get it to clip, but simple design. You know, little ball socket design. So if I did want to break that free, it would just kind of stress me out. Like, obviously I 100% never want to break the aluminum. And if you look in here, this little black retaining ring, it just has these 3 little separate clips. Super simple design. You do have to clock the bulb so that the lettering's right, but pretty cool. Well, obviously I don't know how to film. I keep forgetting to turn my camera on, but I put these grommets in. I know they don't look pretty from that side, but I pushed them from the back side. That way you chew up the inside that you don't really see. And then all these will run out and then be taped together just like I did on this side. You can see. And then just try to hide any of the colored wires. And it's just some cloth wrap, and obviously it kind of looks like it did before. So now those are in. Now I can start working on the actual headlight assembly. The lights are on, you know, looks a lot like the other one. I've been trying to push that in there so you don't see the purple, but you know. Then I use these little brass screws. I thought they looked good. So I might have to work on alignment later. This one looks a little twisted. And then I tried to hammer out this dent, but you can still kind of see, especially with the light right there, but it's not horrible. It doesn't really bother me that much. It's part of the truck. So now they're 12 volt. Hooked up the headlights. If you haven't seen, you go in here. Here we go. Sometimes that switch doesn't want to work. But headlights, I actually had to switch that bulb out. I didn't realize that bulb was bad, but pretty exciting. And then now my gauge lights are also working, which is cool. And my running lights are working. So one more thing off the list. I also made up a shifter boot for the shifter and emergency brake setup. So I'm about to put that on also. Well, let's show you in here. Hopefully you're not getting too blinded by the light. But that's what the shifter boot looks like. You know, nothing too crazy, but it'll match the seat. If you saw, I cracked the lid on one of these boxes. Well, if you haven't been following along, I had to glue all these up anyway to make the panels. So gluing this back together isn't really mind-blowing, obviously. It wasn't even broken off, so like, you know, that whole seam's nice. So I haven't even sanded it or done anything to it yet, but I just kind of open it up, push glue down in there. Little wins, you know? I'm basically at the end of this build. I broke this stupid breaker. I don't know if I filmed this yet, but I use these circuit breakers. Obviously, I know the 200 amp is way too big, but that's just the one I had. But I tightened this too much, and it broke the plastic. So I have 3 of these coming, so just for backup because it's pretty annoying. The truck is ready to start. It's got all its fluids in, coolant, oil, gas. It's ready. That's why the truck is not running. And hopefully I don't have a ton of issues because I'm out of time working on the truck by far. The end of another day, you know, didn't film much at all, but happy the headlights are in. Showed you guys that. I got the shocks in, so I had to mount. I made these, you know, shock mounts, and then it goes into the pre-existing spring hangers. QA1 single adjustable shocks in there, nice and hidden. I got to finish up the wiring probably tomorrow on the headlights, and then test all that, and then got this side in. I try to make everything on this truck easy to work on, but oh my gosh, these bolts. I had put those in before all the fenders and everything were in, and it was so hard that I actually had to have one arm up top, one arm down. That's once I could even get the wrenches onto the bolts, and then look through this hole all the way down there so I could see what I was doing and stretch my arms as long as I could. It was horrible. Like, horrible. I'm so sorry. Because the bolts go through, and now all my wiring's in, my brake lines are in, and the fender's on. Like, you have to put the fender on first. I'm not gonna say that. I would assume 90% sure you probably have to put that fender on before you do that, unless you took this headlight bracket off. But I'm trying not to undo anything on here because I'm really afraid to break this. The casting, there's like bolts in here. I'm trying not to, obviously, try not to break anything. We're in the final stretch. So now those are on. Hopefully headlights tomorrow. I'm sure I could drive it right now, but I do want to bleed the brakes a little bit more. Try to get some insurance tonight or tomorrow, and get her out on the road, get some test runs in, see what issues arise, and get it ready for some shows and to be for sale. I think I'm gonna end this video here. Hopefully I caught everything. Just a bunch of little side projects. I hope you guys like watching these videos. Later.